Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Thoughts on the Couch. I'm Tim.
I'm Tarun.
And I'm Krishna.
In this week's video, we discuss the highly confusing new trailer for Hideo Kojima's upcoming PlayStation exclusive Death Stranding, the newly announced reboot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and of course the news that the World Health Organization has declared gaming disorder to be an official medical condition.
In other news, we're also going to be talking about the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog movie and what a delay might mean for the final on-screen product. Let's get started.
So Kojima Productions have released a new trailer for their upcoming PlayStation exclusive game Death Stranding, which features the talents of Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, Leo Seydoux, and Troy Baker. According to the game's official synopsis, the game is set in the near future after mysterious explosions have rocked the planet, setting off a series of supernatural events known as the Death Stranding. The player takes on the role of Sam Bridges on his journey across a ravaged landscape filled with otherworldly threats in order to save humanity from annihilation.
The trailer also revealed that the game is set to be released on the 8th of November this year, with pre-orders now available at your local video game stores and online. You can check out the trailer for yourself at the link below. According to Kojima, Death Stranding will be an entirely new type of action game.
We get to see Sam driving a motorcycle and Mads Mikkelsen's character Cliff speaking to one of the babies that have been featured in a lot of Death Stranding's marketing so far. The presence of the babies seems to allow Sam to see or sense the other world. We also see some of the game's supernatural elements with the trailer showing mysterious black goo giving birth to a ghostly World War I battlefield, with period-appropriate trench warfare and tanks.
So, what do you guys think of the trailer?
I think it's just absolutely
Yeah, I think
crazy.
we can all agree that it was confusing.
Does anyone know what's going on?
It's added more questions than answers.
Yeah. And the first question I have is, what the hell is that baby doing in this game? What is the purpose of the weird, backpack thing?
So from what we understand, or at least from what I understand, the babies seem to have some sort of sense to the other world. So they're using them in a way to detect where these black goo otherworldly beings are.
Okay.
But we're not completely clear on that.
So, like the astral plane, is it?
Maybe.
We don't really know what it is. It's kind of just like, because Hideo Kojima is a guy who's actually has this reputation for making, games that are quite
Weird games?
weird games. Yeah, basically. And this is just like the same old Kojima weirdness.
What other weird games has he created?
If you look back at the Metal Gear Solid series, it's really about political espionage, but within the story, there's always some weird element that either breaks the fourth wall or also go into some other weird territory. Hideo Kojima has always had this weird sense of storytelling, which is very intriguing, at the same time not at all distracting from the world he's built.
Because the most interesting thing to me was that you guys remember PT, right? The original demo for the Silent Hills game he was going to do?
Yeah.
Back when he was still at Konami.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm kind of missing that because I thought that would have been a really interesting game. But now that's been cancelled. So basically, he's just combined some of that. I guess it's kind of like sci-fi. I don't really know what's going on in it. And I suppose that's kind of the point. Because I was reading the synopsis he wrote and posted on Twitter. And I was halfway through and I sort of understood it. Or I thought I understood it. And then it just dropped off the deep end and I was like, I have no idea what's going on.
This trailer, I felt like I was just starting to understand what he was saying. And then at one point, he just dropped something else and I'm completely back onto square one.
Yeah, so what do we think, guys? Are you guys going to pre-order? Are you going to buy the game at launch?
I don't know. I'll have to see more about this game to actually consider buying it.
It's rumored that they'll be revealing a little bit more during E3, but I don't know if that will answer any more questions or just create more questions.
Yeah.
He mentioned something about other players in his synopsis, and I'm not clear. Does that mean it's multiplayer? Does that mean it's co-op? What does that mean?
This game seems oxymoronic in a way, because you're trying to connect the country and break down walls, but through war.
Yeah, Krishna brings up a good point, actually, because there's actually quite a bit of combat. On the same, you mentioned, looks promising, and I was actually just thinking that, because I remember, watching the trailer, I still have, no idea what it's about, or the vaguest idea what it's about. But I'm seeing, we have, some of the most talented performers we have, in the industry. And I'm kind of I don't know what this is about, but these people are involved, and I could see myself getting much more interested in this game and eventually playing it.
Yes, I too am really excited to play this game. I don't know if I'll pre-order it, but it'll definitely be a game I'll buy at launch.
So, while we're on the topic of new trailers, we've also learned that the next Call of Duty game has been announced. Developers Infinity Ward and Activision have confirmed reports that the game will be known as Modern Warfare, but rather than being a sequel to Modern Warfare 3, it's actually a reboot of 2007's Modern Warfare. The reboot will feature a new single-player campaign with returning characters such as Captain Price. According to the studio, the game represents a return to their roots and will be a grounded military sim, with moments that are just as provocative, if not more so, than Modern Warfare 2's controversial No Russian level. According to Taylor Kurosaki, studio narrative director in Infinity Ward, the team wants to reimagine the original game's characters in today's ground warfare.
We have also read reports that major outlets also got previews of 2 segments of the game's campaign. One involving the British SAS conducting an anti-terrorist raid, and another with a young Middle Eastern girl becoming a freedom fighter after witnessing her village being destroyed by Russian troops. According to Polygon, the girl's story will form half of the story's campaign, with Price and Soap's story forming the other half.
It's also going to be built on a new impressive-looking purpose-built engine, and it's set to be released October 25th. So, what do you guys think?
I'm interested.
Me too.
Very interested. Obviously, I remember playing, most of the Modern Warfare series. I've done the campaigns for like all 3 games, I think, at some point in the past. And it looks like an interesting game. I was initially quite skeptical about, they're rebooting Modern Warfare. They're just trying to, grab cash from something that they know works. But this actually looks different from that. This looks like a product of genuine passion.
After watching the reveal trailer they released, it looks like they are completely serious on making this game.
Yeah, and there's a point to be made there, because in like recent years, obviously, we've seen games like Infinite Warfare and Advanced Warfare where they just gone like in such random directions, and people just did not like that.
Yeah, I think after the Modern Warfare series, at least after Modern Warfare 3, okay, myself included, like I have not really played all the way through Modern Warfare 3, but I heard like they ended the game with most of the world being nuked, so they couldn't really build off anywhere. Am I right?
Well, I don't want to spoil the game. Let me put it this way: it like ends in a way that they couldn't like really make another game after that. You kind of like get the sense this is the end of the trilogy. This is the end.
Okay, so they couldn't really build off anything, so it only made sense to reboot the series.
What's interested in me about this like reboot is obviously like it's trying to be different to other reboots, and obviously they've said this one's going to be gritty, it's going to be intense, it's going to be very realistic. So that to me, like I'm thinking we're going to get more controversial moments like No Russian. Obviously, if you guys don't know what No Russian is, I'm just going to break it down for you like really quickly. So basically, it was a controversial level of Modern Warfare 2, where basically you joined a group of terrorists when they're conducting like basically a mass shooting. And basically, the player is given the chance to basically just gun down dozens of innocent civilians in an airport. Obviously, it's very graphic, and they eventually acknowledged that it caused some controversy when the game first came out.
The game does allow you to skip the sequence if you are sensitive to that.
They did add that option if you players didn't feel like they wanted to experience that for themselves, which is understandable. So obviously reading what Polygon said in particular about, the anti-terrorist raid and the Middle Eastern girl watching, her village being destroyed, obviously that makes me think that we're going to be seeing more provocative moments. Like that's really going to push gaming as a whole.
They did mention that the game was going to include more controversial moments than the No Russian mission. So it really makes me question how far they can really go, because that in itself is very controversial.
I'd like it when games try to push that. Like as far as obviously there's some moments that, we shouldn't be able to, play. But at the same time, I'm thinking, obviously, I don't know, you guys have heard of Spec Ops: The Line. It's actually a really interesting game because it's a shooter game that takes, or you guys should really look into it. It's actually like such a good game. It's a shooter game that tries to like, basically, it looks like COD, it looks like Battlefield, and it says these games are basically, they're like patriotic fantasy. They're like fetishizing the military. They're like glorifying war. What we want to do in our game is show the full horror, the emotion of war. And it's actually like a really uncomfortable game to play because there's a few moments in it where you actually question like the morality of your own actions. It's actually a brutal game. It sort of takes after like, we're talking like the Heart of Darkness original books. And it takes inspiration from, I think, a film you guys will know, Apocalypse Now. So it's very much like that in game form. And obviously there's some very controversial moments, and the game's developers wanted to say, we want to push this view that we are making games about war and we're trivializing it by doing this. So if that's something that this new COD reboot is going to do, I'm definitely going to get it. I'm interested to see how far can we push this.
Yeah, I'm interested to see as well, like, since this game is going to be set in our modern era, I want to see what they can do with it as well, for sure.
I'm interested in that because obviously, like you said, like they said in their interview, the world's changed since they made the first Modern Warfare. It's been 12 years since the original came out. Obviously, warfare has changed and like the political landscape of the Middle East has changed. So I think it'd be interesting to see that redone. Anyways, what do you guys think? Why do you play COD?
I have MW2 on my laptop. It's stress relief for me.
Well, they've got some good news for you then, because apparently everything that comes after like the game's release, we're talking maps and other post-launch content, it's all going to be free for players.
Yeah.
So there's no season pass. And I know they've talked about adding new different types of multiplayer modes to the game. So obviously, with COD, it's not only about the single player experience, we're also about playing online.
In contrast to Modern Warfare, we're also getting a very different modern game that has some people scratching their heads. A proper AAA game by Square Enix based on The Avengers. An appearance by the game, now with the official title Marvel's Avengers, has been confirmed for E3 in a couple weeks' time. Square Enix's E3 conference will be held on the 10th of June. The game was originally first announced at E3 2017 with a short teaser trailer where it was shown as the Avengers Project. We'll have to wait until the conference to learn more, but what we do know now that it has been worked on by Crystal Dynamics. Some of you will recognize them as the studio behind the rebooted Tomb Raider series.
According to a now revised E3 listing, the game will feature hero customization, as well as both single-player and multiplayer modes, combining cinematic storytelling with continuous single-player and cooperative gameplay. So until we get to see more at E3, what do we think of an Avengers game?
Me personally, I'm very excited for this game. Like, since Ultimate Alliance 2, we haven't had another Ultimate Alliance game. I know there's one coming out for the Switch. The animation style is a little different, and I'm not a huge fan of that myself. So I feel like this will fill that space for me.
I really don't know what to think about a game based on the Avengers. There's so much we don't know about it. We don't know how it's going to be like. What is it? Is it going to be like a fighting game? Is it going to be like an RPG? It could be anything. And right now I'm just like really skeptical until I see more of what they're planning. And obviously we can discuss like, what do you guys think? What type of game do you think it's gonna be?
The only thing that makes sense to me, myself, is that something that relates to the Ultimate Alliance games, where you just have 4 players and you can like switch between them to choose who you want to control. You can play it to 4 players or 2 players, which really prompts for multiplayer experience. But for something like this, since this is for the modern age and something more immersive and stuff, I really don't know how they're gonna execute this while engaging all the new audiences that they're getting for gaming.
You raise an interesting point because obviously there is another Ultimate Alliance game coming out, and I know people love the last 2. So the question is, to me, would it make sense to make the Avengers game exactly like Marvel Ultimate Alliance when there is another one coming out, and then you would have essentially 2 games competing with each other? See, that doesn't make sense to me. So that says to me it won't be like Ultimate Alliance.
See, for me with Ultimate Alliance, I've had tremendous fun with that game.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
It's an excellent game. I'm sorry, just before we go on, give some love to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, because I just remember the original before the MCU, all that was like the closest you probably could get.
Personally, I've always been a fan of Marvel since I was growing up. I've grown up with Spider-Man and everything, and so I really am intrigued in the Avengers game. It's also rumored to cross over with Marvel's Spider-Man, which I'm also really excited for, if that is a thing. But it does raise the question what that means for the people who are not on PlayStation.
So, yeah, you raise a good point there, because obviously, if this links in with the Spider-Man PS4 game, I mean, the question is now, what happens to people who don't game on PS4? What happens to the people who play on PC and play on Xbox One? Obviously, we don't know. I'm assuming that Marvel's Avengers is not going to be an exclusive to any console. But obviously, the reason why Spider-Man is only on PS4 is because Sony manages the Spider-Man character. It'd be interesting. I don't think they would do that, the crossover, especially since, obviously Sony manages Spider-Man and PS4 exclusive. I don't think they're going to change that. So it'd be difficult to say like the crossover with a multi-console game.
Krishna, as someone I know you haven't played the Spider-Man game.
Not much, but I have. I have it on my
Oh, you
PS5.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You do have it. So, what do you think of the Marvel Zero Avenger game that's coming up?
Yeah, I'm very excited too.
And like, do you think like there's potential of it being crossed over with Marvel Spider-Man? Because there's been rumors of Marvel wanting to create a universe of their own in the video game industry, like they have with the cinematic universe. Do you see potential there yourself?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think. I think a lot of people are open to this.
I'm kind of open to it as well, but the thing about the MCU, what they've been doing is basically releasing films pretty quickly, one after the other. I mean, not quickly in, normal terms, but in terms of like cinema terms. It's been, what, 6, 9 months between them?
They do roughly every 2 or 3 every year.
And obviously, you can't do that with games because games, you need quite a lot of lead time to work on all the different elements of a game. So, it's not something they could just churn out. But at the same time, we also have like within the game, you have what you can put in easily 60, 80 hours of content.
Yeah, see, from my point of view, like they don't have to release 22 movies to finish an entire arc because in video games you already have the freedom to invest as many hours they want for the players to get invested into the characters they introduce. But these are going to be a AAA title by Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, who produced, like you said, Tomb Raider.
That's interesting to me because you have the guys behind Tomb Raider doing an Avengers game, there's like a dissonance there for me because I don't know what to think. Because I'm thinking, you mentioned Crystal Dynamics, I'm like Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Who would you like to see featured, for example?
Iron Man, obviously, like the original six.
Yeah? I mean, obviously, they've confirmed a few in the teaser already, kind of. I mean, we're seeing Iron Man, we're seeing Cap, I think, we're seeing Thor.
Also, what villains do you guys want to see in this?
I mean, show me something like Doctor Doom or Galactus or something like that. Interesting, I want to see that.
So yeah, okay, moving on. According to the World Health Organization, a gaming disorder has now been made into an official medical condition in the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases, or ICD 11. According to the WHO, the gaming disorder is described as a pattern of gaming behavior characterized by impaired control over gaming, increasing priority given to gaming over other activities to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other interests and daily activities, and continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences over a minimum period of 12 months. The gaming industry's representatives have pushed the WHO to reconsider its decision, claiming that it isn't based on sufficiently robust scientific evidence. I can agree with that.
So, yeah, obviously, this story actually dates back to the end of 2017, where the WHO, this is when the first proposal was made that gaming disorder should be classified as an addictive behavior. Obviously, last year, the media outlet Polygon spoke to several mental health professionals who they called the classification rushed, a junk diagnosis. One even argued that the WHO is actually being pressured by China and South Korea, obviously those countries in particular, to classify it as a medical condition, since the governments of both countries have been battling gaming addiction at a policy level. So obviously we should note that the ICD isn't law, but it can be hugely influential when it comes to determining public health policy. So what do we think? Is this a thing?
See, in some cases, there have been news of people getting, dying from game binging, but in the end, those are some extreme cases, which I think rarely happens. Other than that, gaming has really just been a hobby for most people. To classify as a disorder, I think it's quite harsh.
You see, the problem I have, I have more than a few problems with this, but obviously, like me up against the WHO at the moment, I'm not a doctor. Anyways, first of all, it's never been explained to me how this is different to just plain addiction. As in, this is an addiction to gaming. The problem is addiction. And to me, people can get addicted to literally everything you can think of. We can get addicted to, playing chess, for example, even. So, why specifically go after gaming?
And I see people around me, especially because I live in SoCal, getting real excited about basketball. And I don't understand it. Does that mean I should classify that as an addiction? I don't know.
When you've been addicted to something, like you've been prominently addicted to something, is when it starts really affecting your social life. When you start prioritizing gaming over social life, over connecting your friends and family. See, I understand all that. To classify as a disorder doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's a bit harsh.
Personally, like that's one of the other problems I have with this classification, because when you say gaming disorder, that means, you know, it implies that gaming itself is a disorder, no matter what level you do it as. So, I mean, it's not something like gambling, which is, I'm not saying all gambling is bad. I mean, not necessarily, but gambling, as in, it can become something much worse, much faster than gaming, if that makes sense. So this is, to me, is like, this is a case of like them just, you know, labeling it wrong. If they called it compulsive gaming addiction or compulsive gaming disorder, for example, then that makes it a little better to me.
See, last week we talked about the anti-loot box legislation, in which we talked about gambling and how it compares to that. In this, I can see the loot boxes being like a gambling addiction. But other than that, you don't see gambling becoming a disorder, and calling gaming a disorder, I think, is still a little harsh.
To me, it seems kind of premature, and you actually raise a really good point there, because the way I see it is that you label gaming as a disorder, but it's an activity. You wouldn't say the actual prevalence of this condition, according to their research, is actually really low. And the sort of people who would like qualify for this are actually streamers. So we're talking streamers who sit at their desks playing games 8 hours a day and interacting with their fans. But at the same time, I was just sort of raising that they do take breaks, and to them, this is the way people make money. This is the way these people make money. So at what point would you call going to a 9-to-5 job and sitting at your desk, you know, with only a break for lunch and bathroom breaks? Would you call that addiction? Would you call that, you know, addicted to work? Obviously, you know, we should also, you know, try to have a balanced debate about this. So obviously, I think I've seen the point raised in online discussion forums when I've seen this, you know, whole diagnosis classification discussed. It actually, like, what this classification will actually do is that it helps mental health professionals, you know, diagnose people with this very specific condition, and then there is very specific, you know, healthcare available for these people. And by doing this, you help allocate, you know, we're talking resources from public health funds towards this. Now, obviously, you know, that can be a good thing, for example. But again, you know, are we just, obviously this is, I don't know, it's not clear to me whether this is actually like backed up by, you know, a lot of evidence, and are we just, you know, throwing resources at a problem that doesn't really exist?
Yeah, slightly off topic actually. I saw this interesting video once about the hikomori in Japan. So the hikomori, translated in English, it means hermit. These are people who spend years locked in their rooms, and a lot of them just game all the time, and they never come out of the house, and it's reinforced their sort of social isolation. In Japan especially, I think legislation like this helps, but it isn't the root
Yeah,
cause.
certainly, I can see that. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Gaming is a disorder. At the same time, I just feel the need to say, you know, obviously all of us are pretty big gamers and we're closely involved with this. So if we do have like a personal stake in this, there is a bias there. Well, that's all we have time for. So moving on to our weekly movie news. Jeff Fowler, director of the upcoming Sonic movie, has announced that the movie's release will be delayed by 3 months to give his visual effects team time to fix Sonic's controversial CGI model. This comes after the release of a teaser for the film, which was bombarded with intense criticism online for the way they designed Sonic, which I kind of have to admit, it looks really off-putting.
Yeah, obviously this is an unusual step for movie makers to take. They pushed back a release date to address criticisms and the concerns of fans. Fowler also announced that the movie, which stars James Marsden and Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, will now be released on the 14th of February 2020, 3 months later than its original planned release in November this year. What do you think of the Sonic movie?
It looks terrible at the moment, not gonna lie. You can talk about Jim Carrey as like Dr. Robotnik or whatever, but Sonic's current design is the absolute worst. I'm glad they're doing this.
See, I think Jim Carrey can pull off the villain role. They did in the end of the trailer reveal that he does go fully bald and like commit to the character looks, other than being fat and round. The look of Sonic, which is the subject of this topic, is he definitely needs some work, and I think they can do it better. I have seen fan redesigns, which definitely work way better, which I'll put up right now here on the screen.
But at the same time, I've also seen redesigns that are actually, frankly, even more terrifying. Have you guys seen the one where they replaced his eyes with the mouth
Oh yeah.
Just no. I'm just like, yeah. Just keep it away from me until you fixed it, guys. Come on. This is like a little behind the scenes tip for you guys. We actually record this really late at night. I would not recommend looking at those images before you go to sleep, is what I'm going to say first. Okay? Nightmare fuel. So, yeah. Don't do that.
But here it is.
I was going to ask you guys, like, do you guys think the redesign is a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea to delay it? But I don't think like there's anyone who would say it's a bad idea.
See, I think by them delaying it, they're showing they care. But also at the same time, it also shows that the studio themselves were never confident in their own Sonic design to release it in the initial date.
Big off. You make a good point because it sort of worries you for the movie, doesn't it? Because they were kind of like, they put out the teaser and fans were like, we hate this new design. And then they said, you know what, we'll change it. It's kind of like, yeah, we weren't totally 100% sure about our design either. We just put it out, we got the reaction you did, and okay, yeah, it's a bad idea. Let's go back.
There are people speculating that they did this for a marketing stunt so that will get more attention. But seeing that they did this delay so that they'll give the VFX team more time to rework the design really shows that they didn't plan for this, but at the same time, they did expect the criticism that they got this permission to delay the release of the movie. So moving quickly on to our weekly review roundup. This week, the mobile game Florence, and also a discussion of our upcoming review for Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Let's get started about talking about Florence. So this was interesting to me because I was like, personally, I do not play mobile games. I mean, obviously there's like Pokemon Go, Plants vs. Zombies, Angry Birds, but truth be told, I haven't touched those games in a while. And I think what this game is a very interesting, it's a very simple love story. And more than trying to be a console game in the way, Fortnite plays on mobile, for example. This is a game that actually really embraces like its roots in the mobile genre. It's about how you normally use your phone. That is how you play Florence. And obviously it's got this great art style. I was blown away by how good it looked. The big overall message from this game that I took is that it's possible to do all the good, all the great things we're doing with games on different platforms. And it's possible to do that on a mobile. I know obviously mobile games they don't have such a great reputation. Because obviously when someone says mobile game, what do you think of? You still think of, for example, Farmville. Is Farmville still a thing? Where you pay for energy, it's like microtransactions, you're paying like $2 an hour or whatever it is. Full of ads, and people just have that image of mobile games. And this did more than any of those games have ever done for me. Because you sit there playing Farmville for like, 3 hours on end. Like day after day, it's all the same. This just broke that illusion so effectively. I have to recommend it to you guys. People who are mobile gamers are considered, I don't know, the word is casuals, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't go with that label. I mean, play the games however you want.
How much does it cost, by the way?
Oh, for me, it was like 100 baht, like 100 Thai baht. I don't know how much that is. You can check the conversion in the App Store or whatever. But it is, to me, kind of fascinating. Obviously, like, the big thing that was discussed, I saw, was the ending of the game. Okay, ending is not so great, but it's worth it to have the journey on the way there, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's $2.99.
It's pretty short, too. Anyways, moving on. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. What do we think?
I'm excited for it.
Krishna speaking as the one voice who hasn't seen it.
Myself personally have already reviewed it, and you will expect to release on Monday very soon. And honestly, don't go into expecting too much of story, character development, or anything. It's really just a monster movie. Just enjoy it as that. I think if you don't think too much about it, you'll enjoy it. Other than that, it's a fun monster movie, but as a story or character development at all, it's not that great.
Obviously, like, what Turin's review is going to say is that the sound is amazing. I will tell you, like, on a more personal note, that the sound, even in, like, I don't even know how it is in IMAX, okay? We didn't go see it in IMAX. We went to see it in, like, a normal theater, 2D, all of that. The sound was so loud, and over 2 hours, I literally walked home from the cinema with a headache. That is how loud that movie was. Okay? It is loud.
If anyone questions it, I said the sound is great because...
Is it immersive, though?
It is ridiculously immersive.
For me, it brought me the immersion of what a monster should be.
Exactly.
In the end, it is a monster movie. Don't expect too much out of the human characters, the plot, or anything.
There's like bits in it that are unintentionally funny. Because I'm just looking. No, looking back on it, I'm kind of like, okay, mild spoiler alert. There is so much rain in that movie. Like every other scene is like rain. It's like they forgot to turn off like the fake rain shower over the whole scene, and they just let it run.
I feel like the characters forgot when they're in a radiated zone. Like those half of those characters should be dead at this point.
Movie logic and plot armor.
Exactly.
Yeah, not a bad movie, but like when we were talking about the sound being loud, it's like I can't get this across to you like clear enough. It was like sitting next to like a jet engine.
And it fits, right? Because if these monsters actually existed, humans would have no place.
Personally, I don't think they barely had any place in this movie, but okay. But like Tarun said, basically you go to see the monsters fighting, you get the monsters fighting, okay, just ignore the human drama.
I think the general moviegoer has less of a right to complain, I think, because the trailers, even the trailers sell it as just mindless fun and spectacle.
The marketing team they had for this are amazing. The trailers are way better than the movie. If you're a monster movie fan, watch the movie.
It has everything you could ever want from a monster movie.
Also, if you're looking for anything more than just a monster fight, pass. You're not going to get anything else.
Anyways, that's all for this week. But before we go, we're also pleased to announce that we're starting a podcast. It's going to be called The Controller, and we'll be posting the first episode pretty soon. So keep an eye out on all of our social media channels.
As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram in the links below, so you get notified whenever we post new content. Thanks a lot for listening to us, guys, and until next week, bye-bye.